And away we go indeed. Welcome today to Wise Up on Air. My name is Damian Kaspauer. I'm the software product manager at Audiokinetic working on Wise here. Seattle, winter, it's happening. And I get word from Montreal that it's snowing in the most beautiful way. So hope everyone out there is having a good time of year and get settled in because we got some really fun stuff cooking. Let me give you a sneak peek of that. Uh, First of all, we're here to share with the developers behind the Indian storytelling and cooking game Venba. Let me do a little quick adjustment. I get the word that microphone is a little bit. That helps. Thanks to folks in the chat and behind the scenes. One more time with some magic here to see if that works out. Let me know how it is. I did a little bit of dancing there. Perfect. It sounds like it's okay now. Ta-da! Wouldn't be a Wise Up on Air without a little fun and games. So thank you and keep me posted as it goes. So right, we're here with the developers behind this awesome indie game Venba, and we'll be getting to that in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about some cool Audiokinetic news. Audiokinetic out in the community. We're going to get a community spotlight, some folks who have been doing really cool stuff with Wise, and then we will shine the developer spotlight on this cool indie game. So first of all, last week we had the Wise Worldwide Online Expo live stream. Jump back in and grab a replay of that. We covered the new release of Wise 2023.1, a bunch of features at a high level for that new version. Super stoked, and the team has been working hard to bring that to developers who are really reaching for a lot of the exciting opportunities for immersive audio out there. So we covered a bunch of that, along with an update to Strata. Right. Exactly as I said, 23.1. That also landed with our samples. So we updated our Wise Adventure game, Wise Audio Lab, leveraging the features of 23.1. and updated our other samples with the new version. And Strata, as I mentioned, over 37 collections released in the last year. So just a ton of content there to our multi-track audio sample library delivered in across Reaper projects. And if you've been tuning in, we've been going hands-on with each of these releases over the past months and just diving in deep behind the scenes on the creation of the physics collection, one of our largest collections exclusive to Strata, like really giving game folks what they need to create physics in games, as well as other collections like the cannons and spaceships and creatures. And each of these hands-on sessions goes into both the multi-track library in Reaper, as well as a demonstration of that content over in Unreal. These are co-hosted with Chase Steele, part of the Strata team. And we have a great time. Swing by when you can. We also got brought up to speed by Simon Ashby, head of product and co-founder of Audiokinetic, about Strata integrations, new production partners that we can look forward to in the next year, new subscription models, so project-based, as well as a new student subscription model that is going to be awesome for folks who want to use it as a way to educate themselves about sound design techniques, methods, and just it's a master class in sound design from the ground up. So a great new subscription model there for education. We dropped a link into the chat for a blog that covers all the new Strata features, so check that out. And go grab the samples. We have a sample pack 1 and 2 that you can get access to right away and just try it out, see what's there. And you can actually use those sample projects in your game. The licensing is flexible for you to apply those sounds directly in your projects. So jump into the Audiokinetic launcher, get your Strata samples, get your Wwise 23.1, and go make some noise. Have some fun out there. We've got some live streams covering features of 23.1 coming up. One on Thursday of this week with Alan Lee from the R&D department talking about Reflect and the new phasing mitigation features that are part of 23.1. And then you won't want to miss next Friday, December 15th, when we go hands-on with a couple of folks from the spatial audio team with the new features and fundamental features getting started with spatial audio in Unreal. It's going to be an awesome one. January then will bring us back from the other side of the holiday with a hands-on with the integrations team, talking about some of the cool stuff happening with our Wwise integrations. And then landing towards the end of January with another great overview of our authoring API and Wwise authoring query language with Bernard. And if you've caught any of those in the past, Bernard does a great job of giving you both a high level and detailed introduction to the power of WAPI and WACL to extend your development workflows. So keep those posted. You can get signed up for notifications on YouTube, get subscribed to the channel, and hope to see you there. We've got another Strata hands-on for a collection coming up in January for Warfare and Space Station ambiences. We're here today talking Venba, and we've got Baldur's Gate 3 signed up to bring details about that sprawling RPG to the community here and really dig into how they're using Wwise. Don't forget the AK blog. We're always putting out new and interesting perspectives from both Wwise developers and folks at Audiokinetic. We're going to have a series of blogs from the spatial audio team, starting today with a blog that just dropped on the revised Auxsend model that has been updated as part of Wwise 23.1. So really cool deep dive into some of the reasons behind and how we have revised that in order to bring a greater precision and opportunity for even better realistic filtering of propagation. And then stay tuned. We've got one coming for reverb zones, one from Alan talking about phasing mitigation, and Christoph is going to bring a deep dive onto a feature of 23.1 called continuous raycasting, which really brings performance to the forefront when you're trying to get information from the environment to make it sound realistic. But out in the community this fall, I don't know if I saw you, but I hope I did. Give me a shout out in the chat if you were there. Audiokinetic was on the ground at Game SoundCon, and I just wanted to bring that back because it's so cool to be back in the real world with folks, catching up in person. So many great conversations. Audiokinetic was there both on the expo floor talking to developers about their projects, either using Wwise or searching to understand the benefits that Wwise brings to a development pipeline. We also participated in a Future of Game audio panel that was expertly moderated and had really great perspectives from a bunch of folks across the industry. Someone brought out their socks. Spoiler alert, if you didn't know this, Audiokinetic socks. They're pretty cool. Pretty cool. So a lot of great folks and good times at Game SoundCon this year. In addition to presentations across both days, where we brought educational pieces to the proceedings in order to, get people started with Wwise, get people thinking about multi-track sound libraries with Strata. There were a couple of great presentations leveraging the Atmos array that our friends at Dolby brought, illustrating different spatial audio concepts. So diffraction, transmission, our new reverb zones, and all in a Atmos configuration inside of the room. So a great opportunity to connect with folks and get more context for some of these ideas that folks are using to make their games sound great. And we'll be at GDC in the spring. So if you're lining it up to be there, we can't wait to catch up. We'll have more information about what we're planning for it, already underway to make it a community-focused and, engaging touch point with folks in the spring. So looking forward to that. And speaking of community, I wanted to shine a spotlight on a few projects that surfaced in my world over the past months. Folks out in the community doing really cool stuff with Wwise that's worth putting an ear on and getting some insight from. The first one here is Matt Callahan. He's got a rain drummer prototype that he's been working with that illustrates both Wwise motion as well as a dynamic ambient rain system. So the cool little prototype that he worked up that gives you a behind the scenes on how he's used features of Wwise. I'll spin just the first section of this.
System I created for my rain drummer. Hi, I'm Matt Callahan, and I'd like to show you a Wwise motion controller vibration system I created for my rain drummer demo level in Unreal Engine 5 and Wwise. In the demo level, the player character must play his drums upon the altar for the spirits to bring the rain. As the player drums, the statues are activated, one by one, until the ritual is finally complete. I built controller vibration into this sequence to immerse the player. The demo level is built for compatible 2-channel X input controllers.
So he goes deep from there to explain how he's integrated it and really flips the hood on something cool there in that overview. So thanks, Matt. Great to see that out there. The second thing I wanted to touch on, and I'm just going to spin it, like Spider-Man 2 playable xylophone using Wwise. I mean, I'm a sucker for it. I love it when folks have the time to put these tiny little playable music elements that are so rich and add to the experience of the game. Congratulations to the folks at Insomniac on the launch, and super cool feature. Really dig it. The last thing I wanted to show was Adrian Gomer and a prototype that he's working on where he's using the controller in conjunction with Wwise to make music. So that's just real-time music generation using Wwise as an audio source. And we've had a deep dive on that kind of interaction in the past here on Wwise Up on Air with Ressa Schwartzwald and PDX Drescher talking about Wwise as a sound source. And this is a great application of it as a music making tool, leveraging Wwise directly to make music. So thank you for that, Adrian. It's so cool to see and hear what everyone is working on out there in the community. Speaking of that, we're going to go live with Venba and talk about some spicy sounds and musical storytelling in this interactive game. I'd like to welcome to the live stream Neha Patel. Great to see you today, Neha.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So good to have you here. Thanks for arriving on time and ready to talk about this cool game. But give me a little bit of an introduction to you and how you arrived here today. Where have you been?
So I've been in cold Quebec City. It's snowing a lot. It's freezing. But luckily, we're going to be talking about Venba, which is a heartwarming game with spicy sounds and spicy food and lots of flavors and colors. So I started working with the team back in July 2021. So this was about 2 years ago. And funny story, I had been following them on Twitter for like a long time before that, and I was posting on their stuff, and they were posting on my stuff, and we were just too scared to like talk to each other. So for almost a year prior to that, we were just both wanting to work with each other, but too shy. It's like a middle school love story, right? And then one day in the month of July, I get a DM from them because they had the courage to actually message me. And that was the start of it. So we met through Twitter before the whole Musk thing. But anyways,
yeah,
it still happened.
Seems like a good fit. And again, communication, it boggles my mind how it happens these days, but I'm always glad when it does. So that's so cool that you're able to find each other. Sometimes it feels like games in general are quite a small community. So that must be part of, as a freelancer, what you're doing is you're checking out games, who's doing interesting stuff. And this really feels like the kind of game that fits the music you make as a composer and also leverages your experience with sound.
Yes, I mean, this was like back in 2021. I had been in the industry for about a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, I started in late 2019. I think we had a chat, Damien, and I had quit school. Not because of you, but I had quit my, I just want to put that out there. Damien did not make me quit my school thingy. I was doing a master's program, but I had to quit that. And I remember it was in the summer of 2019 that we chatted, and he just gave me the courage to, just push forward. And I was lucky enough to be working with, smaller teams. And I've only ever worked with small, cozy indie darlings, let's say. So this was just another little team that fit perfectly with like the palette that I like having.
Nice. It's such a great story. I remember that conversation and the passion you had at that moment to try and break off into this path of freelance and game audio and music. Do you primarily consider yourself a composer, sound designer? You're like
composer,
all
actually.
Of it? Okay.
Composer turned, I ended up doing a lot of sound design. Turns out I really don't like, and this is very personal to me, but I don't like writing music for film or TV. It's something I tried and I quickly realized this is not for me. But I ended up doing a lot of sound design because during my last year of school, I was doing a crap ton of game jams. I was probably doing at least one jam a month. That means I'm sleeping over there during the weekends and everything, right? It was very, very intense. But the good thing out of that is that it made me work really fast. And it's basically how I learned how to do sound design because my bachelor's was in piano. Most of game audio was not everything, but a lot of it was self-learned. And especially sound design was 100%, okay, I got to learn this by myself. A lot of YouTube videos, a lot of Twitter videos. I forgot his full name, but his name is Juan. I believe he used to work for Bungie. I'm not sure. I'm getting Seattle-based, I believe.
Yes, it's Juan, and his last name is escaping me. I've known him for years.
I used to like bookmark so many of his videos. Like,
yes, fantastic.
But a bunch of like game audio people, basically the online community.
Yeah, and we'll get into a little bit of what your process was like in Venba for creating these sounds and kind of the deep rich history that you brought to that process. But before going there, let's talk about Venba. Can you give us a kind of introduction to it as a game? Like, what do people, what's it like?
Yeah. So I made a little presentation. So
Great.
I'll just use that because it will help a lot. I believe you see my screen, right?
I see your screen.
And a slideshow.
Ta-da. Great.
Oh my God, this is working. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so here I am presenting the Sounds of Venba. So I made a little presentation. Wait, work. Okay, cool. Okay, awesome. This is working. I mean, I talked a little bit about myself, but yeah, I worked on indie games. Recently, I worked on Six Ages 2, Eternights, Minimaker Spleen. When I don't work on music and sound design, I spend a lot of time talking about like the realities of game audio, like the financial realities actually, sustainability, selling your OST, basically being financially okay, because it's really tough out there. And I feel like the more we share with each other, the better it is for everyone. And especially for me, I had a lot of people help me out and just give me, the a look on reality, basically. So I had the financial means to be prepared for this career. Then we have Alpha Something. He is our composer and lyricist for Venba. He would be here on this live stream at the moment, but unfortunately he is not. But he has a really, really good reason. At this very moment, he's on a plane heading to LA because Venba was nominated for 2 awards at this year's Game Awards. The first one is Best Debuts Indie Game, and the second is Best Social Impact Game. So Alpha Something, as well as some other members of the team, are headed there.
That's
but
awesome.
He's been
and we've got a pre-recorded video from him that will be flying in later, so stick around for that.
Yes, he's with us basically. But he has music on Bandcamp, YouTube. So please check him out. He's absolutely like exceptional. So Venba, we're at the game part, yay. So Venba is a narrative cooking game. You play as an Indian mom, her name is Venba, and she immigrates to Canada with her family in the 80s. As a player, you're going to be cooking various dishes. You restore lost recipes, because Venba is given a recipe book from her mom, but over the course of time, a lot of it is smudged, ripped off, so you're trying to figure it out. There's a branching conversations, and basically you explore Venba's world in a story about family, love, loss, and more. Unlike more typical or the majority of cooking games, nothing in the game is time-based, or there's no QTE. There's none of that pressure. It's very much a puzzle game. You're trying to decipher what's missing, what's not. There's hints throughout the game. And as you're rediscovering the recipes, you also learn a lot about Venba, about history, about culture. And it's quite beautiful.
And I love the circular pattern of the relationships in the game. Like you mentioned, the grandmother's cookbook and then in Venba's family, then the recreating these recipes as a process of gameplay, handing that tradition down to her son, and this circular kind of historical knowledge sharing is such a rich storytelling mechanism for the game.
I feel like, food in almost basically every culture has that power, right?
Yeah.
It's something where even if you don't speak the language, you can eat the food, right? So like it goes on to the next generation, to Coven. This is Little Coven that we see here. I don't want to say too much about the story, but yeah. Here is the trailer. Should I play it on my end or your end, Damien?
Oh, why don't you just roll it and let's see how it goes.
Okay.
நம்ம சென்னை சிட்டி அது கடையாளந்தாய் எங்க பட்டி தொட்டி இழுக்குது பாருடி செல்ல குட்டி சென்னை சிட்டி டக்கல் பட்டி தொட்டி கலக்குது செல்ல குட்டி நம்ம சென்னை சிட்டி அப்பா ஓகேல.
Sounded great over here.
Yeah, hope that got you hungry.
Yeah.
It was one of the difficult parts of working on this game, is that you're always hungry. because they were looking at so many like delicious foods all the time and cooking them. And yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Great. So thank you.
Thank you.
Congrats
Sorry,
to
I'm
the
trying
team
to-
too. Like what an incredible accomplishment. It has such a clear visual aesthetic. You know, the
That's
sound
props.
as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah, I mean, props to our art director, Samuel Khanna. He's awesome.
Great.
And a little, sorry?
Great.
Sorry, I can't change the slide. Okay, there. Awesome. I did it. We're gonna talk
Yes.
about the team, actually. So we're all over the world, actually. For Venba, we were 100% remote. You have to understand that Venba was made during the pandemic, and it was the studio's very first game. So that was a nice meddling of things. So I myself am from Quebec City. Alpha something. Abhi is our founder, designer, programmer, writer, a whole bunch of things. Okay, he's in Ontario. So is Shireen, our producer. We have folks in India, in the States. Sam, our art director, he's Indonesian. So we're all over the place. But 4 of us actually. So Abhi, Alpha something, me, and Shireen, we're all from India. But the thing is, we are from completely different spots in the country. I think something I want to take the time to explain is that often India is seen as just this one big country, right? But instead, it should be seen as a multiple countries mashed into one with the name India. If we say, hey, Europe, right? You understand it's a continent and that there are numerous countries, and European cuisine includes Italian, includes German, includes French. Now, I'm no food expert, but I'm going to assume that German food and Italian food are worlds apart, right? Well, same thing with India. Venba is from Chennai, Chennai, from Tamil Nadu, which is the south of the country. Abhi and Alpha something, they're also from Tamil Nadu. Shireen, our producer, she's from Bangladesh. And I myself, I'm Gujarati. And my family's from the coast right over here where we live right across the ocean, basically. But this means that our languages are completely different for one. Every province in India has their own unique language. And not just that, but there are numerous dialects. So I believe we have at least 50 official languages. And when we include the dialects and such, we're at 200 plus. So I actually do not understand Tamil at all. Before starting on the project, I was given, I wanted to know a little bit more about the culture. So I was watching some Tamil movies that Abhi recommended. And to my shock, there wasn't a single word I could understand. At the same time, funnily enough, I was watching this Arabic telenovela, and I understood more Arabic words than I did Tamil. So it was quite a shocker. And same thing with Bangladesh. Like they speak Bangla, it's a completely different language. So even though it's a game about an Indian mother, Venba is a game about a South Indian mother. And we really took the time to showcase that. So these are some South Indian food. I mean, you might know something as popular as dosa or idlis. Some of these dishes, I actually only found out later what they are. This is called puttu. It's one of the dishes you make in the game. I don't want to dwell too much into the cuisine right here because I want y'all to play the game.
And because you'll make me too hungry.
Oh yeah, that too. It's very dangerous what I'm doing here. Please forgive me. But it's just to showcase that Indian food isn't just your typical butter chicken, vindaloo, and naan. Not to say that there's anything bad with that. It's just that in North America, I feel like that cuisine, for one, it's North Indian, often Punjabi, and that's from the northern state. It's very popular, and it has its place. But Venba gave us the opportunity to showcase something else in mainstream media. So it was an honor to be a part of it. And I'm grateful that I got to learn as much as I did. So with Venba, we had a decent amount of pre-production, and I am very grateful for that. The team gave me the time, the money, and the support to do research, to have the time to just immerse myself in a bit more of Tamil culture. But right from the start, there was this discussion of okay, what's the soundscape that we wanted? And basically immediately it was, well, we want to represent a South Asian household. We want to keep it realistic. And I remember from the get-go, I said, I want to make the player feel like they are in my childhood home, in my Indian home. I'm the child of immigrants. I was born into a very traditional Indian family. So like, I know the clanking of the steel. I know the radio playing in the morning, the Saturday morning pressure cooker sounds. These are all the jangles of the bangles. These are all sounds that I only realized in my 20s that, hey, like people's houses don't sound like this. It's very much something from my childhood and my teenagehood. And with Venba being a game and having this cartoony almost style, right? We could have gone on a more abnormal or more, I guess, cartoon feel, but it felt like, hey, for once I have this chance to make something authentic. That I knew that the writing was authentic. I understood that the dishes they were making were also authentic. I mean, there was so much research put into those dishes. I mean, everyone cooked everything from scratch, interviewed chefs, interviewed home cooks. So it felt like, well, everything is being done in such a realistic way. I also want to put my part into it. And so post 20th century in India, stainless steel dominates. And until this day, I'd say that stainless steel dominates. Next slide, our dishes, our pressure cooker glasses, the masala dabbo, which means masala box, they're all made out of stainless steel. It is extremely popular. Also, if you're like South Asian descent, you know Hawkins, MVP, the OG of pressure cookers. Fun fact, in my early 20s, I didn't understand when people said pressure cooker and referred to an Instapot. And I'm like, that's not a pressure cooker. That thing has buttons. It's like, it's a robot. It's alive. When I say pressure cooker, I want my OG, like, the whistle, the steam blowing out. Everyone knows when you're a kid, your mom asks you to count how many whistles it whistled, and then you forget to count, and then you get in trouble. And it's such a wholesome memory now, right? And like, the sound of this is just terrifying. Till this day, I despise the pressure cooker, even though it makes delicious food.
It just reminds me like
yes.
iconic sounds from childhood. Like we all have them, right? Whether we're reaching back into our memory to pull them forward, or sometimes they jump out at us. It's like I clearly remember the sound of the toaster, or we had a clock that had a certain kind of tick to it that, was very clear, not food related, but these sounds from our childhood, and the way that you've brought your childhood into this game, your experience, like, again, as you're describing all these details that people are bringing to it, it's all greater than the sum of its parts because it has such a rich root in your experience.
Yeah, I mean, the game had that, so I just wanted to compliment it, right?
Yeah.
And like, I own all of these products over here. I still have my pressure cooker. It's in my closet, like literally beside me. I do not use it to cook. I hate it. But it makes great sounds, though.
Do you have an Instapot robot now?
No, I can't go there. I'd feel like I'd be insulting my ancestors. So like, I'm not there yet. But
Okay.
I do have the Hawkins, like this thing.
Yeah.
I just can't. I don't know. I'm scared of it. Anyways, we also love bangles a lot. It's traditional to just wear them. I mean, we don't always wear this many. This is obviously a wedding. But the sound of like a mother or like an older woman in the house walking with the bangles jiggling a little bit, that's also something that I will be showing, but it's something that I wanted to recreate in the game.
Nice.
Oh, so we have a video here.
So there's a question of whether you can crank up the sound on the video a little bit.
Oh, yes. Let's see. Okay.
I'm optimistic for that. Thank you.
Okay. So in this first video, I'm going to pause. What I'm doing here is it's called a process of tempering. And a lot of Indian cuisine starts this way. You have your oil that you heat up at quite a high temperature. and then you put your seeds. In this case, it's mustard seeds. And then, it explodes in the pan and the oil bursts, the thing pops, and there's a smell. It's very fragrant, and it's the base to a lot of dishes. Because it's a very high temperature and I'm putting a lot of these little seeds in there, the oil is bursting. And I mean, like, I used so much burn ointment during this recording process. I got hurt by steam, by oil, by deep oil. Like, it was just all over the place. My microphone here uses the windshield here. It burnt to crisp by the end of it. I had to buy a new one. Also, this was 2021, so I was just at the beginning of my career and I was very, very poor. And it was the pandemic, so I didn't have fancy equipment. I couldn't go to a proper, recording studio. So I don't know if you see here, but this is the masala box that I personally own. And I just put that on the stove. I put my mic on it. I have my headphones. I had a laptop and an audio interface, and that's about it. So here we go.
That's
So
fantastic.
those are a few examples.
Yeah, we have a comment in the chat. They're popping mustard seeds all the time for fried rice. It's so fun, and it pops everywhere. And coriander seeds, I guess, are slower to pop.
Yes, very good.
Okay.
And what's it called? Jiru, fennel seeds.
Ah,
They're also they're quicker. They burn really quick, so you have to be careful with those.
right. And I already know you're foreshadowing in talking about the gameplay side, but these sounds are all like really strong contributors, not just to the soundscape, but also to the gameplay itself. Like hearing the sounds, identifying, and as you mentioned, kind of puzzle game aspects. They really play a role in helping people through the gameplay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit more in the Wwise Project about that, but there are references of which step of the cooking process you are in just by the sound. So in this video, it's more of a side-by-side, like actual gameplay to the source of the sound from the gameplay.
Yeah.
It's not perfectly in sync, but here we go. So that was a terrifying cooker.
What a great illustration. Thanks for preparing those videos. They're so evocative of these sounds you've been talking about. And yeah, it's almost a one-to-one for, the item and the expression. And what I found in playing the game is that everything is, I will say understated, but what I mean is perfectly stated, in that it all arrives at the right sensitivity, just expressing these different actions of the game. And where were you using the bangles? Were you tying it to animation, or was it in the UI? Like, how did you weave that
you're going
in?
forward, yeah. So the bangle sounds are a little bit everywhere, actually. I ended up putting it a lot in the UI. when you do a dialogue choice select, because you know
Yes.
the little hand that picks the whatever choice you're gonna pick.
Yeah.
A lot of it in there because I kind of wanted the bangles to be constant throughout the game. It's such a like emotional sound to me.
Yeah.
The sound of a mother or grandmother. I'm putting in a lot of females here, but it's more like there's this maternal sound from the bangles that's just so unique, and that's Venba, right?
Right.
And it's the whole story is from the perspective of a mom immigrating, and it's not an easy job. I mean, when I read the prompt like years ago, right? And I saw there was a story about an Indian mother immigrating to Canada in the 80s. I laughed out loud. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're making a game about my mom. That is literally my mom right there. And funny enough, I'm like, when I met Abhi, I was like, wait, did your mom also do this? And turns out, no, like he immigrated when he was 12 years old to the country, to Canada.
Right.
So it was very much like a little like, wow, like this is my family's story. This is something that I feel on a very deep level.
Yeah.
So yeah, it gets emotional, but the bangles are just so important to me.
Well, and I think that that's a perfect illustration of arriving in time with your historical perspective and giving that a kind of emotional opportunity in the game to kind of carry some of the emotions that are expressed through the story, because it whether you're conscious of it, as you say, having the history to identify with the story, or whether you're just empathizing with the experience as it unfolds, like these little details reinforce the strong emotions that run throughout the game.
Yeah. So that was something.
Cool.
And I spent a lot of time, I basically have a sound bank of like a sound library of Venba sounds. And I mean, it was kind of a necessity for the project, right? I tried going through sound banks first, and the sound of bacon greasing, it's a beautiful sound, actually. I love the frying sound of bacon. It's just that it's not the same as frying like those fennel seeds or the mustard seeds, right? So it felt like I used a lot of sound banks in the game, but more as a filler to the actual original sounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have my own little Venba sound library now.
Nice.
Next up, I was gonna jump into the Wwise Project, which I'm very nervous about.
We are excited about that here on Wise Up on Air. It's always a fun time to navigate through. I think you were talking about maybe a naming standard or two that we might unpack.
So I am very embarrassed. I'm doing this whole warning disclaimer thing before I click on the little Wwise icon here, okay? Because this was my first like professional Wwise project. Prior to that, I used to play in Wwise and just have fun doing stuff by myself, but never on a like professional level, not to this level. And it was the team's first project, and the team had never used Wwise. By the way, huge shout out to Max for helping us out at the very beginning and the end and throughout the process with the licensing and this and that, because we had a blast working with people at AK, and it was just a lot easier knowing that not only is it a great software, but like the humans behind it are very, very kind. And that was very much appreciated, especially when like we didn't answer back emails on time. So sorry about that. Anyways, my Wwise project, it's the first professional one. It's a hot mess. I did try color coding. Okay, I'm nervous. I'm clicking. Here we go. Okay, we're here. There's nothing that fancy. It still looks alive. Look at this. I color coded.
Nice.
We're only gonna look at the sound design stuff.
Okay.
So I have ambiences, cinematics, CK for cooking, extras. It's for the DLC that's coming out very soon. Woohoo! I can say that now publicly. Like, we know there's a DLC. It's announced. It's okay.
Awesome.
Movement, narrative, other, meaning oh yeah, some old stuff I was too scared to move. Preambles, transitions, and the UI. This is that beep, which was my test sound for a lot of things.
Do you have a process with the beep that you're like sprinkling it as a precursor as you're implementing over in the game engine side, or how do you use
We
the
did
beep?
that at the beginning. We did that like so they had made little stuff, and I would do that at the beginning just to check is it working or not.
Yeah.
And then like the beep just retired. But I never retarget the beep. So they're there.
Sometimes you never know when you're going to need the beep again.
Exactly. I'm too scared. Like there's stuff here that I don't use, and I'm just too scared. Like I don't touch anything.
Yeah, that's fine.
So anyways, the one I wanted to focus on is the cooking folder.
Great.
So Venba has 7 like distinct levels. We have the biryani level, chicken level. This is just cooking tools. Dosas, idli, curry, stood up, which is actually a cooking level. And
Got it.
all of these are the orphans. They're from the puttu level, the very, very first level, which was also the first thing I worked on.
Yeah.
And because back then I didn't know how I was gonna like folder everything, they were kind of let loose.
Sure.
And then they just stayed there, and I didn't do anything with it, and it's okay.
Okay, but right out the gate, like you've already got a CK as a prefix, right?
Yes, I tried.
So,
yes.
So I mean, hey, like you're doing it, and even from there, I can see that there's some really clear, naming, opportunities that you've leveraged to kind of keep things organized at that level.
Yeah, we also had this beautiful Excel sheet that I believe went out of use 6 months before launch. I would have showed that, but it's completely useless now.
Sure.
Anyways, let's go back to biryani level. So the biryani level is probably the most complicated one for the player and for myself as the one who had to do all the sounds for every little intricate thing. So if I open this up, we could see that, wait, I'm going to close this. We have a whole bunch of ingredients.
Yeah.
Bay leaves, cashew, chili, the ladles, the pot lids, ghee, ginger, garlic. Sorry, what is the frying? Which is actually what's frying? Frying. Cool, that's frying. A whole bunch of seeds.
Same diff.
So, yeah, it's all good. So these are like basically every single ingredient for that one level. At times, something that was very difficult for me is that I speak fluent Gujarati, and when it comes to spices, I only speak Gujarati. English is very difficult to translate. But the thing is, when we were doing the list with Avi, he doesn't speak, we speak different languages. So everything was written in English. So here I am, Google translating my own like spices that I grew up with because I don't know the English words, or I know the Gujarati words and I can't, So at times I gave up, and for my own sake, I kept it like ilchi, methi. That's just Gujarati words that I just kept there.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you know what? It's okay. It's just me. Something cool that we did was here we call it active sizzling. So basically there are different when you're cooking biryani, you're frying stuff all in the same pot, but in different stages. That means that the sound of the frying changes depending on what you put in. So this is something that, we're very familiar with as children or as people growing up in the house, where very hot oil has this very like faint like sound. It's almost nothing. Then when we put in the seeds, there's that popping sound, and depending on what the seeds are, it's smaller or bigger. Then our parents add the vegetables, and it has a bit more moisture. It's a bit thicker. And then finally, when you add in the meat or whatever big, marinated thing you have, it's much more of a deeper stew-like sound. So to make that work, we named them in different levels, 1, 2, 3, 4. We put in a very basic RTPC just for the volume. And then we added a blend track. And so I'm going to try to play this from the beginning. This is the entry when you put in the seeds. It's loud, and then it gets softer. The vegetables. And this is the stew-like sound. Et voila.
Nice.
So that was our
And that really clearly illustrates the different gameplay elements when you're adding different parts to the process, right?
exactly.
Nice level of detail. That was great. And do you
Thank
have
you.
like how does we talked a bit about how the seeds pop different.
Mhm.
I'm guessing each level or each recipe in the game had its own specific seed type for whatever the recipe was.
Yes and no. Some of them we reused. But it depended on no, because the first, I think biryani is the one with the most seeds. The other recipes, they're more steaming or deep frying or
Gotcha.
like pan frying, but without the seeds.
Okay,
Oh, there
cool.
was something else we had to add, and we named these the entry level. These were like one-shot sounds that played. So the active sizzling, those are loops, right? But the entry level, we have entry level meat, veg, and popping. I say fennel popping, but it's basically for all seed popping.
Sure.
These are the one-shot sounds that play at the beginning of each active sizzling.
Right.
So at the active sizzling seed, we're gonna be playing fennel popping at the same time for veg, meat, and meat. And that's because we wanted to capture that initial burst of sound. Now, if I put in the initial burst of sound inside the active sizzling, the loop wouldn't work.
Right.
And so that's why we made it separate entry level. So for the meat, we have this. Vegetables. And the popping. And voila.
That's
So
great.
these were, they're not this loud, but they're mixed inside the active sizzlings, basically.
Yeah, well, and it's those levels of detail that you're giving people with sound to reinforce, the gameplay that, I'm imagining being able to identify these things over time after I've made a few recipes. Oh, okay, yes, I can, even with my eyes closed, I can understand, I'm popping seeds, this is what's happening.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have, all the seeds. The seed sounds are really difficult to do. We have all the seeds that are just when we put the ingredients in the pot one by one, and before it starts like popping with the oil. So we have, when we grab the seed from it's on the table, right? So we pick it up and we drop it back on the table because, I don't know, we made a mistake. So we have this. You drop it in the pot, which is a stainless steel pot. So I wanted that reverby, more of that metallic sound because it's a stainless steel pot. And then it's just a stipple sound for picking it up.
Cool. Hey, a question coming in from the chat for the frying loops. What were you using to drive the blend track? What parameter were you getting from the game?
That's on it was just depending on where the player was at in the game, literally just that. Because if you put in the wrong order, you fail the level and you have to redo it.
Got it. And so did it have some kind of game parameter slew rate?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
It did. I am remembering over here. These were not this one. Yes, we had our active oil sizzling levels.
Cool.
And depending on that, we would, there's the events in the games, and we would just change it depending on that.
Yeah, cool. That's great.
So we used a whole bunch of game syncs, which was a lot of Googling.
Right. But that makes total sense. Again, you've got this dynamic gameplay routine where at any point you could go back to the beginning because you were out of order with your puzzle and recipe. And so, yeah, that makes total sense. Great. Thanks for the question from the chat.
Yeah, thank you. So similar with the chicken level was also very, very heavy in ingredients. Every ingredient had a pick up, drop table, drop pot, And then, oh no, I was about to give a spoiler away, but I'm not going to say anything. But there's a reason why at some points there's a clumsy sound. So it's like this fourth sound of like, oh crap, the character is clumsy, and therefore I have to make a clumsy falling down sound for the items.
Right. And I can see your naming standard evolving. It's really sharp now, right? You've got the cooking prefix, you've got the name of whatever the different ingredient is. You then move on to the different actions that ingredient takes. So I think it's evolving right alongside your experience, and it looks like you landed in a great place.
That's a huge compliment. Thank you.
Yeah,
I mean, it took me a while to get here, but we did it. Like
Yeah.
it happened. Towards the end, it happened. Whistle. Sorry, that's not where I wanted to.
But I love how, even that prefix that you decided on early on, was a good choice. You were able
Thank
to
you.
maintain it, and I'm sure it helped you during the process to identify the different types of sounds. So
Yeah,
makes
there was a lot
total
of
sense.
time spent just figuring out at the very beginning of like, oh crap, like how do I divide this? Like, do I do it in action, this, that? And it felt like, I don't know, we're cooking a lot, so better do a cooking category, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and
I'm
from
gonna
there, it's like I want to reach for this ingredient, and what are my
Exactly.
actions that I can do? Okay, and yeah, this
I think
is great.
looking back, I would have put like the biryani in the wording here, but anyways, these are just
Sure.
stuff I'm looking back at. I'm gonna be playing pressure cooker because if I hated it, so do you. So that's just the loop sound. Then we have the release. I believe this is the scary one. Yeah, that's the scary
Yeah,
one.
okay.
Oh, I hate it.
Was there ever any danger? Is that like a danger sound for you?
Yeah, well, when you're a kid, it was just, I don't know, I don't like loud sounds that come
Right.
suddenly. So that was scary. For when I recorded my own sounds for the pressure cooker, my God, did I burn my hands? Like
Oh,
I burned my I had so much burn ointment like right beside I would actually prepare the polysporin should like sponsor me because I had the polysporin little burn cream. Like I would take it out from the medicine cabinet to have it ready to go because I
Yeah.
knew I was gonna burn myself.
oh,
And
Sorry
this
to
was
hear
like in
that,
this
yeah.
tiny apartment in my last apartment, and I would have to wait for the cars to stop moving and stuff. But then you also have this hot stove, right? So like, anyways, a lot of juggling. So that's that. Oh, I wanted to talk about the UI a little bit.
Yes.
So at the very beginning, Abhi and I's one of the references that he had was Night in the Woods. He absolutely loved like the subtle ambiances, the general, just general I guess audio soundscape of the game. And I really love the dialogue sound. But another example we had was also Celeste. And the dialogue system in there is absolutely insane. Kevin Regami from Power Up Audio had done this. There's a video out there of him explaining the FMOD project and like just going through all of it in details.
Yeah.
And he explains how he did the dialogue, the voice system in Celeste. And I wish I could show you the video right now because there's this certain point. It's like a 2-hour long video, but there's a minute and a half that I kept looping again and again because I was like, oh my God, this is genius. Like he recorded like syllable per syllable and then did this and like just did this crazy stuff at Fmod. I'm like, I'm gonna do this in Wise. I'm gonna record everything per syllable, have different voice ranges, and it's gonna show the emotions too. And I totally gave up on that. It was so not realistic for me. Like I think I spent 2 weeks trying to like, and this was the fun part with them is that they gave me the time to work.
Yeah.
But I think for 2 weeks I tried doing his system, or a week, maybe a week, I can't recall. But it totally did not work for me because I realized this is so freaking hard. So a huge shout out to Power Up Audio. Like the work they do is just, it blows my mind. I tried recreating what y'all did and I failed. So I did it my own way. we had a lot of trouble trying to figure out what were the sounds that we wanted for the dialogue. From the get-go, doing VO was out of the question. And then we knew that doing a cartoony sound was also out of the question. So after I think about 2 weeks of doing back and forth, like all y'all seeing right now is when you look at the text here, right? You just see, hey, this UI underscore speech text appear clear pop. Like it looks simple. But there were so many test versions in there that I had to all delete and take out because we went through a lot of back and forth with different types of sound, and nothing worked. I think at some point we all said, like, okay, let's just give up on this. I'll go work on something else and I'll come back in a couple months. And I was at my wit's end, and I ended up trying pencil sounds, like just pencil scribbling. And because I wanted to differentiate Kavin, Pavelon, and Venba, I made it at different pitches. So Venba has a higher pitch, Pavelon has a lower pitch, and Kavin is right in the middle. So we can listen to that here. So that was my way of like giving them each of them their own voice. And it turns out the team loved the pencil sounds because it has this, I think accidentally works with the art style, which has this very paper-like, like literal, realistic, this feel there, right? It feels like you're in the game. That was
and
my
the
big
art of
story.
writing is a personal thing, right? It has a kind of personality to it. So I think that was again another subtle and effective way to reinforce the emotional storytelling of the game with sound in a way that was appropriately placed, right? It wasn't over the top. Again, part of your process, it sounds like, was trying a lot of different things, and some of them worked and some of them didn't. In the case of the complexity of a dialogue type system, right? But ultimately, stepping away, coming back, finding the clarity to communicate the emotion of that event. You just landed in the right spot.
Yeah, I did, and I'm so grateful for the team for having given me that time, right?
Yeah.
Because I honestly, this one gave me a semi-mental breakdown of like, I just cannot do this anymore. Like, nothing is working. I look back here and I'm like, and this was at the beginning of the project, right?
Sure.
So I was still getting to know them. I was still very shy, and I'm like, oh no, I'm failing at this, is what I felt. But all worked out. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, thanks for that.
And then, oh yeah, we talked about bangles earlier, right?
Right.
So I wanted to show where I use them quite a lot. So dialogue. Yes. So when you hover over a generic item, you hear that. When we no, not that one. Oh yes, this is the menu. Like, so in the menu, when you intro, there's a dish coming in with a whole bunch of like stainless steel stuff, and you see Venba's bangles as well. So I wanted to capture all of that, like that, and like that. But yeah, I think the main one. Sorry, I'm trying to choice select. No, not that.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Dialog choice select. For me, these little short bangle click sounds were really important in the choice selecting because you're choosing, dialogue stuff all throughout the game. So it just had to be there because I wanted Venba to be present all throughout the game. And yeah, it's just sprinkled here and there. It's a little bit everywhere. And yeah.
I love it. And UI is one of those things that I think people can sometimes overcomplicate, right?
And I mean, we almost did that, right?
Yeah. But the choice you made in retrospect seems like, overly simple, maybe, this
Yeah.
identifying the emotional connection with Bangles and, connecting it to the different characters with their writing. And yet, like, it's hard to get that kind of simplicity and communication in UI sometimes. And so, again, it's great to hear about your process for these, because I think UI, like other categories of sound, you know, have their challenges, and ultimately the what you've arrived at is just the clearest representation, which is hard work, it sounds like.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it means a lot. I think there was. Oh wait, sorry. There was one more little sound I wanted to show,
Yeah.
but no, it wasn't this. Oh yeah, this is for the volume increasing or decreasing when you selected the menu. I think that's what it is. And UI prompt. That's paper sound. UI. So this is for this. This is when you're playing a level and you realize, oh no, I think I messed up. That's when you can redo the level from the beginning. So I wanted like the stainless steel sound, but warped up a little bit. I think I did some weirdy sound effecty thing on it because I wanted it to not sound realistic
Yeah.
because you're rewinding time, right?
Right.
And yeah, I think that's the gist of the Wwise project. I'm not sure if anybody wanted to look at something else specifically, but
out there in the chat, let us know if you want us to zoom in somewhere in this project. I'll just say again, like, having a deep dive into the UI for a while, I'm just imagining you like in the cupboard, like throwing things out of a drawer, like the Swedish chef, just tossing around all of these stainless steel implements and utensils. But again, that clarity of aesthetic informed by your experience, you knew the soundscape that the developers were going for, you lived it, and it was that clarity for what you wanted to represent that I feel like gives the UI a consistency. Because as you're throwing stuff out of the drawer, or clicking across those different elements in the project, they all have a consistency to them that I think is what people hope for when it comes to UI, that you can both understand what it's trying to communicate over time as you learn those things, right? You hear these things over and over, but also contributes to the story that's being told in a way, reinforcing, in some cases, the emotion, in other cases, the historic, use of those tools. Yeah, again, really cool.
thank you.
What about music?
Oh, yes. My favorite topic, actually. I will leave that to Alpha something.
Great. I'll cue that video then if you're ready, and we will let him take it away. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Hello everyone, I'm Alpha Something, the composer and lyricist for Venba's original soundtrack. I'm happy to join you folks here at Wise Up On Air to talk more about the soundtrack and how it was made. So the music of Venba. The music of Venba features, I guess it can be split into two different parts. It's songs that play on the radio and the background scores and things that play during cutscenes. The radio songs, I think, are the really interesting aspect of this album, and we'll get deeper into it. So the radio is the perfect cooking companion, and the game features an in-game radio that plays songs when the players are figuring out the recipes. And we wanted to use this opportunity. It was an interesting kind of angle to bring in the soundtrack from. So we wanted to use this opportunity to explore the 3 decades of music that that the game spans, and also use it as kind of a window into Venba's personality, and like what songs would Venba like, what songs can we show as her being interested in. And that was honestly the most fun part of it, just coming up with the imaginary story and the concept for each song before we dive into it. um, and the other idea right away was that we were going to make it a homage to actual Tamil film music composers, and it only made sense to follow the style of specific composers when we're looking at what would Venba listen to in the 80s, what would Venba listen to in the 90s. Instead of making it generic, we wanted to make it as specific as possible, and as realistic as possible, basically. And so we went for the styles of composers, lyricists, and everything else that we could find to add just that touch of realism to the soundtrack. And of course, a huge part of realism comes from live musicians. Here you see Carlos. Playing this pan flute bit for Kanni Kanini. And here's another one that's one of my most favorite recording experiences. It's a string quartet from Ukraine. They are recording strings here for Nidane. That was awesome. And well, yeah, I guess in the journey of trying to keep things realistic, one of the things we did was to come up with realistic situations and get into details, like who would have directed this movie, what would it have been about, and what situation is this song meant for. And that really helped build almost a lore or a world around the songs that we're making. And it was honestly a lot of probably work that wasn't necessary, but it was a lot of fun to do. And really just like coming up with these universes just for the sake of the song feeding off of it was amazing. It was a very interesting experience. And of course, the melody and lyrics are meant to sound like a specific composer and written by a specific lyricist. And that was tricky because you also had to be respectful of those people while making sure that when people listen to these songs, they don't miss the fact that it was intentionally made to sound like a specific person composed it, or sound like a specific person wrote it. So making that come through in the song was a very interesting challenge. And of course, in the production and mixing mastering stages, it was a lot of creative choices that we had to make. And the easiest one of them all was to just go for industry musicians that have worked in the industry for so long. and really just involving them makes the song sound like something that would come out of the Tamil film industry automatically, right? One of the amazing opportunities there was that we got to work with Deva, who is one of the composers that we are paying homage to. So the song that we made as a homage to him, we were actually able to get him to sing on it. So that's something that's still surreal to me and unbelievable. And that song Chelakuti is definitely one of the highlights of the album. And of course, with the mixing and mastering, we also went with industry professionals that have specifically worked with Tamil film music in the past. And also, the brief given to them was that this song, comes out of the radio and is meant to be listened to in the 80s. So, like, don't make the 808 drums, or don't make the kicks too punchy. You want to keep that sense of almost deteriorated audio quality of something that you would listen to in the 80s versus something that would be slightly more electronic, maybe a little too electronic up in the 90s, and then it just blends into more of the Western top 40s by the time it gets more and more recent. So we wanted to make sure that even the audio quality and the mixing and mastering of it was following along with the script of the fact that some of these songs were meant to be made in the 80s, and some of them were made in the 90s, and then some of them in the late 90s, and then one more in the 2000s. So
That's
that
okay.
sense of progression of time will be very audible in this album. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for joining me here, and I hope you learned something about the music of Venba. Thank you for the support.
All right. So great to have Alpha Something flying with that pre-recorded video talking about the music of Venba. That's again like deep historic level of detail to the soundtrack. I wonder if you have some more to share about it from your perspective.
I mean, like I only know the I guess more of the back end nitty-gritty and how much they worked to hire those musicians. And it was the first time where I was in a team where so again, this was their first game, right? And Alpha Something as a professional has never worked in the games industry at all whatsoever. Um so I guess I was the one giving them a lot of pointers on how much to charge, how much to pay musicians. And it just, I don't know, I've never had a lead come and ask me like, hey, how much do you think this is enough money? And it's not like they had a lot of money. Like I know what they worked with and it was very, very little. But no one crunched except Abi. That's, not great, but it's also kind of the realities when you're starting up, right? But like it just shocked me that here's somebody asking me how much to pay a musician, or like when the war happened, they really wanted to hire and like try to help out for the cause, right? So yeah, I guess I've never seen someone that's not in the music industry or in the audio industry just have this innate care of like, what is the worth? Because they don't know. And they were scared that the numbers they were given were too low. And you know what? In some cases, they actually were too low.
Right.
Of up and coming musicians that didn't know that, hey, you're worth so much more than that. Or people giving away the rights to their music. Just it was a little ridiculous sometimes, right? But I understand that when you're coming up, it's like, you just want it there. But here was a team that is not a veteran by any means, junior in some sense, right? And they did a lot of research and they asked me a lot about musical rights and how to, equitably distribute this.
Right. Well, it's partially about a sensitivity to other people and their processes, and also just leveraging their team, right? Your experience, what you know, and you
Yeah.
clearly have a you know an interest in making sure that people have equitable share in the process all the way through to getting paid, right?
Yeah.
So it's great that you were able to inform, and just, that the developers were sensitive to it, right? But
Yeah.
I imagine that on this small scale contribution, there were maybe a dozen developers across
We
the
were
world.
max 8, I
Okay.
believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Not counting the musicians, right? So I
Sure.
believe we started out at 4 and then we went up to 8. But most of us are contractors, except for the artist, I believe.
yeah, and I feel like on a small team like that, it's in your best interest to have that kind of sensitivity about your contributors, because you're all working together towards the same goal, and it should really feel like a team in that way,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the game, the music for me was this seamless integration throughout the progression of the story, right? As it's shifting time, it's mirroring those decades, those moments, right? And that's a big piece of what Alpha Something was talking about, was leveraging the talent, and leveraging the thematic material, the tonality of those different time periods, and then reflecting it in the gameplay in Venba.
Yeah, and he had the skills to just replicate. I'm just in awe, like, to be able to replicate the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, right?
Yeah.
All from this one composer. And I'm like, how do you do that?
Right. And really, it's history, pulling again from experience. Like, this is the music he grew up with, right? This is the music
Exactly.
that reflects the story and the time that Venba is growing with her family. And so it's, it feels like, again, pages taken right out of people's experience who may have shared a similar kind of, lived through the same things, right?
Yeah, of course. And I got to discover a whole bunch of like Tamil music, because that is not the music I grew up with, right? So we also had the cassette player, the big chunky, and it's still there at my parents'. It's like, it's still there. I'm not sure if it's functioning. And we had stacks and stacks of cassettes, because that's what my dad liked. And you wake up Saturday morning to the sounds of very, very old music.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. We lived through that generation of cassette players. Did you do some taping yourself when you were a kid?
No.
No.
I was too scared to touch it. Like, we weren't supposed, you just use it. Like,
Right.
I don't touch it. I think we
No.
had this like little cassette recorder thing,
Yeah.
but there were no cassettes for me to play with, if that makes sense. Like, what do I do with it? There's nothing for me to do.
Yeah.
We were also really poor, so I don't think they really wanted to buy anymore. But yeah.
Sure, just to mess around with.
But I mean, our car had a cassette player for the longest time.
Right.
And for those who know, Lagan was my core movie. I watched it at least 100 times. We have the cassette and the CD now.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah, I think it's on Netflix, Lagan.
All right. Easy. Yeah, but again, the music just seamlessly weaves its way through the experience. Did you have to do anything fancy under the hood in Wwise to make that work?
We did integrate it all in Wwise.
Okay.
It made we worked a lot with the loops, because it was Alpha Something's first time working in Wwise. Well, not in Wwise, but like with Wwise, and me having to put that in the forming of the loops, realizing like, hey, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. Actually, Wwise saved us a lot of time with just troubleshooting, because I could hear it in Wwise, like, okay, this is not working, right? We were also able to do different variations depending if you achieved the level or failed the level. So that was just something super simple, and that we did immediately. Which I worked in like only Unity audio, and I don't think like it was a headache, but to just do it as fast as we did, it was a relief.
Yeah, and that's just having a tool like Wwise where you can, stand up your music system, your compositions, do that kind of, behavioral, whether it's randomizing or sequencing, press play in the tool without having to go through the whole game loop of, generating your build, or getting to that place in the level, or having that offline process to audition the music is the
Yeah.
kind of speed up you're talking about.
Like on paper, we had like these equations almost of like, okay, if this happens, that goes to like it felt like algebra, which was great because I love algebra. But there were like things that they were telling me that I could just retranslate into. So it felt like they were speaking a language, and I would just translate that back into Wise.
Nice.
And by the end of it, I think they got pretty good at it too. Like especially Abi, like he understood where the sound banks were and everything, and like he was pretty darn good.
Cool. And Wise tries to keep it simple behind the scenes
Mhm.
for the development team, right? Puts
Yeah.
a lot of the control into your hands, into the Wise author's hands, and well, when it works good, everyone's happy.
Yeah.
So
And it was great because it was in the hands of an inexperienced junior designer that that was very scared. But the documentation was awesome and we had a lot of help. So I'm super grateful.
awesome. Well, we're super thankful for your time today and experience creating the game, sharing it with the community here, and really, it's one of those things that it's a pretty short game, so it's easily digestible. Folks should jump right out from this live stream and into Venba. On which platforms can they get it on?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything.
Okay. Wow.
All of
Yeah.
it. Name it, we got it.
Okay. And
We're
another.
also part of a Wholesome Games bundle currently.
Okay.
For a Palestinian relief fund for children.
Great.
So that could be an awesome way to get Venba. It's at the one of those humble Wholesome Games collaborations.
Perfect. So wherever you play games, grab Venba, soak in this immersive Indian storytelling game, do some cooking, solve some puzzles, hear some
We have a DLC coming
sounds.
soon with
What's
recipes,
what's the DLC going to be?
all the recipes and more.
Okay.
Like an actual recipe book. We also have a radio that is going to be playing all of the music that you can choose, and you could like play around with the radio. I can't tell you much more than that, but it is coming out when we do have a full recipe book. So you have to cook now. Everybody has to cook.
Awesome. That sounds great. Well, thanks so much for being here today, Neha. It's been fantastic.
Thank you for having me. It was a joy to be here.
Yeah, so Wise Up on Air, it's the end of the year. We're into December. I'm wishing everyone a happy new year in advance. Stick around for hands-on with 23.1 features coming up on Thursday of this week, as well as next week on Friday the 15th of December. So lots of chances still ahead to touch base. But for folks tuning in to this Wise Developer Overview, have a great and happy new year. Neha, to you as well.
Thank you.
And
Same
we'll
to you.
see folks on the other side. Bye.
Bye, everybody.